Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Your Friendly Neighborhood SpiderMan Season 1, Episode 9. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I really do love that we get funny bits with Octavius. Like the whole opening bit where he's just like upset because like there's I think spelling errors in the Sokovia Accords, and he's just like, oh my god, there's probably hundreds of people who've broken these accords because of this stuff like that. He's like, yeah, I'm the one sitting in a jail cell, and he's just like, I didn't know, I thought he was going to be reading other scientific stuff, being like, oh, that's garbage, that's stupid, you're wrong, I'm better, you know. But either way, gets a visit by Norman, and Norman is just the most smug mother effer ever. Just like, taking that knife and twisting it. He's like, oh, I'm going to get so giddy with it about, I'm the reason why you're here. I found you. I beat you. Which is so interesting because Norman wanted to make it seem like, once again, that was all Otto, who had the whole like, oh my god, like inferiority complex and his arrogance and wanted to be better. And it's like, no. Norman has it in him too. Once again, you get to that. I mean, that's probably always been in Norman. That's a little bit of that Green Goblin coming out of him. I'm sure, like, at least he has some restraint as Norman, but prior to becoming Green Goblin. But I think it's kind of implying like that beast has always been in him. Once again, that conversation about these powers just bringing out more of who you were. Once again, whether it's a Steve Rogers situation, whether it's a Peter Parker situation, that's always in you. It just amplifies what was already there. So when it's all said and done, though, like, the fact is Norman's like, oh, like, I'm not the biggest fan of Tony, but I could not miss the opportunity to, like, stick the knife deeper and twisting it by having Tony be the one to help arrest you. So when I tipped off Ross, I suggested sending Tony in. It's just like, oh, like, he is just so giddy about it. And I guess this is the main reason why he was trying to take down Otto, because he's like, now all of that research and all that development stuff, because he's in good with the government now, in particular Ross, all that tech that Octavius was working on, all his projects are now under Oscorp. And now it's like, oh, cool. Now, and then once again, rubbing it in, like, I beat you. And it's just, and, I love that Octavius is like calling him a man-child, because it's like, yeah, Norman is acting like a petty child, being like, I beat you, I won. Even though we made it seem like Otto was that, which he is, but he's still like, at the end of the day, I have more, I am worth 1,000 of you, Norman, because I have substance. You are just some, whiny man-child. And, Norman's trying to, I mean, maybe it really doesn't mean anything to Norman, because for him, it's like, right, I'm going to be taking all your tech and I'm going to expand upon it, become even richer, grow Oscorp even more, while you rot away in prison, And, Octavius is making it clear. He's like, oh, the die's been cast. We're not done. I'm gonna get my get back against you. You already had all my ire. Now, like, I am dead set in coming after you again and ruining you. Once again, I don't fully know what Otto's plan was in the grand scheme of things. Like I said, I don't know if he was building up a financial, like, backing so that he could make his own Oscorp to compete with Norman. I feel like that's kind of been my running thought of like why he was doing, because we still don't fully know his motivations for doing that, because we know he's getting paid for all the tech he's giving all these criminals. So I just thought that was interesting. And once again, you creep in some of that sinister stuff of Norman. It's like, how much of that is the show doing that, and how much of it is just your own preconceived notions, because you're like, well, it's Norman, so you already had the idea. You're already looking for all the, like, shady stuff. And even, Octavius called him out. He's like, oh yeah, like, sitting back in the shadows and letting someone else do the heavy lifting. Surprise, surprise. Like that, that's kind of always been your thing, Norman. So yeah, Norman walks away kind of feeling very victorious. Then we also catch up with Lonnie, who's with Dawn, because they're planning on hitting the transport vehicle. And it's interesting because Dawn's kind of like, all right, let's go hit the thing. But, like, Lonnie's like, whoa, you want to take out the cops? It's like, he's for, fighting back, but he's not for, like, out. For one, killing cops is like, that's a big no-no. Fighting the cops, big no-no. That's an organization you don't want to go toe-to-toe with. But for Don, it's like, oh, who cares? Like, once we have this tech, have more weapons than Stark. Like, we ain't got to worry about him. But it's like, Lonnie's kind of thinking about it long-term. We're like, yeah, it's probably not the best idea. And also especially if we might try and smoke some of them in the process. Like, we don't want to do that. So, and yeah, Lonnie was caught up in the moment of like, yeah, I got to protect the 1/10 because they protected me. But it's like innocent people getting caught up in the cross. this being a gang fight is one thing. Innocent people getting dragged into it, no. And then we cut back during that whole situation with Pearl and Nico hanging out, which is like, okay, so there's a friendship building there. Little by little there was, but it's like, I guess that's kind of, they're both kind of in rough situations. Her with Peter, Nico, and then Pearl with Lonnie. And I doubt either one really took the time to talk about their respective situation, because I'm sure, like, well, obviously Nico's not going to talk about the Peter part, but, Pearl knows her and Peter knows that Nico and Peter aren't in really good terms right now. And so doesn't know why, but also I'm sure, like, she's not going to, but I'm sure Pearl's not going to talk about Lonnie's circumstances. But that whole situation, she's like, oh yeah, this is kind of nice. We both kind of needed this, and we should make more of a thing of it. And I'm like, I was kind of thinking about the Peter and Pearl of it all, but it's like, well, Nico has shown in the first episode, she has taken an interest in Pearl. So I'm curious to see if that ends up being the direction that goes. Because sometimes relationships in shows, there's a specific, like, I haven't watched a lot of Adventure Time, but there's a coupling that kind of felt like, oh, this might be the end game, and that couple didn't happen. It ended up being a complete couple. I was like, oh, that probably was set up, and I haven't watched enough Adventure Time to know that. I'm just using it as a random example. Spoilers, like, and I could be mistaken about this, but, like, Princess Bubblegum and Marceline get together, if I'm not mistaken. I was like, oh, when I found out, I was like, oh crap, I did not expect that couple to happen. But once again, I haven't watched a lot of Adventure Time. You probably watch enough, you probably see the seeds of that being planted. But whatever the case may be, that's why I'm wondering about the Nico and Pearl of it all. But nevertheless, Nico is on her own later, and she's listening to Peter's message, and you can tell, like, it is resonating with her. She appreciates what he's saying, because she's also had time to kind of figure things out too, and figure out her whole feeling. So, but yeah, like, because of the whole situation, the truck that's carrying the weapons almost hits Nico. Luckily, Peter, in the new suit, classic SpiderMan suit, saves Nico, gets her to safety. And now it turns into a full-blown brawl because the Scorpions show up. And I wasn't expecting that situation to play out the way it did. I mean, I brought up in previous episodes how I thought this whole thing was going to play out. I did not expect Dawn to run. Like, it's so interesting because Peter has PTSD when it comes to Mac, which understandably, it's like, yo, this guy was seconds away from killing you. Like, you've faced danger before, but this is the first time it ever got that bad and that serious that it, like, freaked Peter out, and he's got some trauma from it. And Don, like, kind of freaked out too and ran. He's left his entire gang behind because he got traumatized, because it's like he wanted to act all big and tough, but the moment this situation happened, it's like, yeah, like, he kowtowed and just got freaked out. It's like, oh my God, like, this guy might actually kill me. Like, even during getting beat up, he's like, okay, I quit. You wanted to be so tough, and you abandoned your people so quickly, because Lonnie's like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about Matt? And just Don bailed on everyone. And this is when Lonnie steps up. Because previously my theory was like, well, maybe Dawn will get into some tech or something, and that'll lead to, like, Lonnie becoming Tombstone and everything. But I didn't know if, like, Dawn would kind of push that on Lonnie. Like, you're my number one soldier, yada, yada, yada. It's like, it's so interesting because this was all about, Lonnie proving his trust to Dawn. But it's like Dawn's the one that abandoned everyone. And Lonnie, like I said, Lonnie stepped up, got to the weapons, but the chemicals spilled out. And I was curious if his skin was going to change immediately. It might be a slow process situation. Like, once again, I don't know enough about Tombstone and his whole circumstances. I don't know, like, my only memories of him are, wasn't he in Spider-Verse? I still have not seen Across the Spider-Verse. I need to, but I'm pretty sure he was, and it's been a while since I've seen Into the Spider-Verse, but he was in that, or am I thinking of Hammerhead? Or were they both in it? I don't remember. Because I think I like the 90s cartoon I think about immediately makes me think of Tombstone, and also is it the main game or one of the DLCs? I think it's the main, it might be a DLC, I don't remember. I think he's in the main game, Tombstone, of the PS4 Spider-Man. I know he's in it, and that's a whole section, but I couldn't remember if that was DLC or whether that's in the main game or not. So yeah, like, but he's not a character I know that well enough to know. So I'm like, I wonder, was everything instant, or could we see with Lonnie, like, he doesn't immediately change, like, the color that Tombstone typically is, was like that bluish color. Like, he doesn't change immediately. So it's like, okay, so it might be a slow process situation that, like, the kind of mutation or whatever, like, takes time and eventually morphs him and warps him. But yeah, at the same time, like, despite everything, Peter's, still trying to do his best to fight against Mac. And he's doing okay job, but it's, Mac is still coming out on top. But luckily, Lonnie gets in the way and helps protect Peter. And, but luckily his skin is hardened, so they start duking it out. And it's actually, I did not see this coming, them joining forces, which, hey, Peter working alongside his villains, that's not something new. That happens from time to time, I think. I feel like it just depends on the situation. And it's like, I mean, to be fair, that's any superhero situation but it's like, especially considering the Lonnie and the Peter relationship. And at the end of the day, Lonnie is a good kid. But either way, it is this interesting situation where it's like, all right, like, let's duke this out together. So Mac has to contend with both of them, and they're kind of giving the business. And I love that whole sequence of them like whooping his ass. So I thought that was beautifully done. And I love that point where, like, Lonnie's like, are you ready for this? And Peter's like, waiting for what? And he tosses him, kind of almost do a fastball special of sorts. But yeah, I kept referencing the homecoming situation. We kind of got that a little bit with Lonnie getting knocked back under all that rubble. And it was all those steel beams and stuff that were dropped on top of him. And Peter was getting more and more upset. And he was just thinking about what Norman said. And Peter, interestingly enough, pulls a little bit of a No Way Home, where it's just like that. I mean, which twofold situation. One, where it's like, well, we learned Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man stopped holding his punches because of everything he went through. Then this, and also Tom Holland's Peter, like, was, aggroed because of like, what happened to Aunt May? It set him off, and he went ballistic, tried to go after, was going to kill Green Goblin, and now Peter's in that same boat. And I love the whole like just subtle thing of just like him walking towards Mac and webbing him, but dodging his tail effortlessly. And then just like, he started like not holding back. He gave into his anger. He webbed him down and got on top of Mac, like Mac got on top of him and started beating the crap out of him, was going to take his tail and pierce him with it. But Lonnie got in the way. But Peter's like, he tried to kill me. He tried to kill you. But for Lonnie, it's like, you mean too much to people. People look up to you. If you kill him, you'll become like him. Don't cross that line. You don't have to do that. The people like in the city, like, look up to you. You're a hero to so many people. So don't cross that line. And so it was beautiful that Lonnie's the one that ended up helping stop Peter in that moment. Because I was wondering, because I think the title of this episode, like Hero or Menace, I thought like because of, this might be the start of it, but I thought because he might cross the line with like, won't kill him, but maybe beat him up so brutally that this is where the Hero or Menace thing really, really, really starts. Because we haven't fully gotten that in this series necessarily. I'm sure more time with Spider-Man that will rise. Like I said, if we get a J. Jonah kind of, doing his thing in this, really hemming up the anti-Spider-Man propaganda. So, but yeah, like Lonnie and Peter go their separate ways. But you see that look on the rest of the 110's face where it's like, like Lonnie stepped up. And I get the feeling like next episode, Dawn's going to show up, try to run things, but Lonnie's going to definitely have the support of the 110th, because they're like, he stuck by us. He looked after us. So that's going to be an interesting thing going forward for Lonnie and Peter's dynamic, because I think it is a thing of maybe the 110th changes what it was, but it might be that thing of like, I kind of like what they were kind of setting up with season 2 of Luke Cage, how that would have carried over into season 3 if they'd gotten to season 3, was Luke you kind of have to play the bad guy for the greater good. You're going to have to look after your neighborhood. Lonnie's kind of in that position where it's like, I might have to do some bad stuff going forward, but it's for the greater good of my neighborhood, and this neighborhood also includes my family. So I want to do what I can to protect people as a hero, and I might not always be on the right side of things, but I'm going to try and do what's best for my community type of thing. So I'm curious to see what that means, like that dynamic brushing up against Peter, like how that plays out. We'll have to wait to see like whether, Lonnie might, think push comes to shove, might push him down more the villain route, but who knows? We'll have to wait to see how that kind of plays out. And like I said, in contrast to like him and Peter, because Peter knows Lonnie. It's like, you also have my back when it came to protecting people and stopping Scorpion. So it's like, He's like, yo, you try to stay safe out there. It's like, hey, you too, and I'll try, you know. So we'll see. I do get the feeling like we will get the Big Dom scene next episode where he's going to try and be like, yo, like, I'm glad you guys made it, and try to pretend like everything's fine. I'm curious whether Lonnie's going to be the one that calls him out. Probably would. And he's like taking the 1/10, and I wonder, will the 1/10 stay the 1/10, or will it become something else under Lonnie's leadership? And when he shift, like I said, shifted into something new, or will it stay a little bit the same? Probably not, because he's going to have a very different approach to how Don ran things. So I'm so curious to see where that goes. That could also create an issue later on, because Don could become an issue where he wants to pay Lonnie back, and that could turn into a whole thing. So not unless he tries to sell the 1/10 out to the Scorpions because of that, or something like that, because Carmilla and the others got away, even though Mac got locked up. So we'll see what happens on that front with those gangs, not unless Lonnie tries to unite the gangs type of thing, you know, which, you know, wouldn't be too out of the realm of possibilities. Once again, there's a lot of directions that could go. We'll have to wait to see. We also have Pete meeting up with Nico, and I love that. I think that's so cute, where like he kind of does the Spider-Man thing of popping down like the alleyway, like, you know, iconic, you know, Sam Raimi one upside down kiss thing. Obviously it wasn't going to be that, but I love, he's like, hey Nico, and she's like freaks out and punches him. He's like, no, I'm sorry, I need to stop doing that. But like, yeah, they kind of finally make up, and she's like, I understand, you know, the fact is that she's like, I'm just worried about Homeworld, but you're like out saving the day. He's like, well, stopping like bike deaths and stuff like that. But yeah, I get your point. But for her, it's like, I get it, you know, I was just, once again, she was just worried about losing her friend, and that's what that stems from. But it's like, she really got to see like firsthand what he's capable of, what he can do. So it's like, yeah, you protecting people, you helped save me, you know. And, you know, it's like, yeah, he's got his best friend by his side again. So, but it's like, yeah, going forward, no more secrets. And then Nico looks at her pendant. She's like, right, no more secrets. So I kept missing talking about it, but like in the episode when she was like, you know, her and Harry eventually made up, what was it, 7? She was looking at the pendant, and she was talking to it like, oh, I know I should give him a chance. Like, that's why I'm like, who is she communicating with? Like, there's something there. Like, because she also, like, before, like, she held up the pendant before the truck hit her. So, like, she was hoping it'll probably do something. So there, I don't know if that's maybe tied to, like, maybe a grandparent type of situation. Once again, it's been a while, so I don't fully remember Nico's circumstances from the Runaways TV show. But also, like, once again, I don't know how one-to-one that was to her circumstances in the comics. So like, once again, I'm not well versed enough in Nico's circumstances. So, but yeah, maybe we'll eventually get that, whether it's next episode or not. Like, you know, it's going to be interesting to see when Nico does eventually explain her circumstances. To be fair, whatever it is, isn't something she's fully tapped into. It's a family thing that she's aware of, but she isn't tapped into it yet, that she hasn't had a chance to really talk about. So, I mean, maybe that's also played into why she probably doesn't have a lot of people in her life, whether it's friends or stuff. Maybe she's always kind of kept her distance because of that. Like I said, we'll have to wait for the show to kind of explore that more. And then also we have the whole Osborn and Peter conversation, where Osborn's like, oh yeah, I'm proud of you, Peter. Like, you are a hero. The fact is that, yeah, you were about to cross the line, but the fact is you didn't show the hero that you are. It's like, oh, the world could use with like 100 more Spider-Man, which are like, I'm sure you meant that literally and stuff like that. So obviously Peter is none the wiser about Osborn's situation, which I think it's interesting, because obviously we know Matt burst in and broke in a couple episodes back, and we have to circle back to like his investigation into things. Like, maybe he couldn't find anything to use, and we'll see if that pops up in the finale at all or not. But yeah, we see what Osborn's doing. It's like, right, they're testing out for the glider. They're going to continue stuff with that. All the stuff that Oscorp acquired from Otto is being categorized, and you're going to utilize it and make profit off it and stuff like that. But we also find out Whitman obviously focusing on all the projects, Dr. Connors stuff, which I'm sure this could also send Dr. Connors down the Otto route to some extent. What, you know, depending on Oscorp maybe taking her and Peter's work, but also like the other interns' work and whatever they're working on and turning a profit and stuff for Oscorp. But also Whitman's also the one in charge of replicating the Spider-Man ability situation. I mean, they were bringing in different animals because I said I think they were probably going to try and see the different. They're probably going to try and let's replicate this on spiders and see if we can replicate Spider-Man's powers first, then potentially take other animals and test it out. I mean, just sadly animal testing in general, but also testing it out on different animals to see like what that mutation can be and what powers will develop from it. So, Osborn going full evil businessman, like excellent, so that's kind of where we end things, and I'm assuming that's what the season finale is going to revolve around. Maybe Peter finding out the truth. Maybe it's going to be Harry finding out the truth about his dad and telling Peter. So it's going to be interesting to see, because we that is like the main thing left, considering Scorpion's taken down, Otto's in jail. It'll be Osborn potentially showing his true colors, or Peter seeing Norman for who he really is, and maybe even Harry as well. We'll have to wait to see how that all plays out in the season finale. I'm very excited to see what happens. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.